everybody, it's Julie. Welcome back to Pages and Pens. I have a labyrinth calendar that a lovely, amazing, fantastic subscriber sent to me, so thank you very much, Brittany. I love him. He will stay there next to his dual Jareths. I'll try to get him into the frame as much as humanly possible because he's amazing and I love him. I'm here with an intro to a video where you're probably not going to see my face a whole bunch. I'm going to show you guys how I annotate books. This is one of my most requested videos, and it's one that was specifically requested more after my 2018 goals where I talked about it a little bit more. Now, I am not a professional annotator. For me, annotating really is just about having fun and marking the book up as my own as I read. While a lot of people get really in-depth with the different color tabs and what each tab means and keeping almost like a key in the beginning of their book for what each color tab means, I don't personally do that. The way that I really annotate is to go through the book, and as I see something that really strikes me as important or valid, I will underline it, or I'll make a little arrow and make a note in the margins. I have a few books that I've done that to, one of which being this DNF, and I will show you kind of how I've done that. I have some little notes in the margins, some little underlined things, so I'll kind of show you how I do that and talk to you as I go through. But just know that while I might tab things up, and I'll show you some of those books, I tab and I underline and annotate, or maybe underline a quote or rewrite a quote in the margin that I really want to remember. I might put a sticky note on specific quotes that I really love so that I can find it faster in my annotations. It really is personal to what works for you. I don't have a specific set of pens. I don't have a specific set of highlighters. I don't have a specific brand of tabs or color of tabs. It's just kind of what I have and what works for me, and I'll show you all of that. For an example of how I tab a book, I will show you All the Ugly and Wonderful Things by Bryn Greenwood. This is one that I read and I tabbed. I did also write in this, but you can see I also put a lot of tabs, and the switch from orange to yellow is just because I ran out of a specific color. It doesn't mean one thing over another. This little section, and then you can see it's also underlined. So I put a tab where I saw something that I really wanted to remember later. Every time I underline something, I don't necessarily put a tab. So you can see I had thoughts and I wrote something out in the margin here, but there's no tab on this page. I only kind of put tabs where I wanted to remember something for a review. So that is one way that I annotate books. So whenever there's kind of an opening, I'll put little notes in the margins and underline, and these tabs were just to mark chapters for a buddy read. So these are not tabs for specific things that happen in the book. And then right here, I got a big old nope circled, and this is the page that I DNF'd on. It's whatever felt right, whatever worked for me. I've got some underlines, some little notes in the margin, and that's typically how I do it. Underlining, notes in the margin, arrows to specific things, and then when I can and I have the ability to and I know I really want to review it, these little tabs to point me to passages that I really found were poignant. First book that I ever annotated was The Assassin's Blade by Sarah J. Maas, and I loved that one, and I did do a little bit more in that in terms of rewriting quotes and things, but I didn't do as much by way of page-by-page annotation and thoughts, which I've started to do more. So I think that the way that I most prefer to annotate is to go page by page, line by line, as something strikes me that might be important in the story later, or that I have feelings for one way or the other, positive or negative. I will make a little annotation. For the most part, I use these. I love these Sarasa gel pens, and these are what I use. They don't go through pages for me. Even these pages are pretty thin pages. These don't really bleed through. So I use these gel pens to go through. I don't think you need a special pen. I think any kind of roller or gel pen will work for you. Anything that's felt tipped or really too wet will probably bleed through, so don't go using a Sharpie or something, but a regular Papermate rollerball will probably be fine. I like to do it in different colors so that it stands out from the text more, so I will typically do a bright orange or bright green, a purple, a pink, something that when I flip through the pages I can see specifically right away at a glance that those were my notes. You don't need to go crazy. You don't need to buy a ton of stuff. You can use post-it notes that you cut up. You can use no post-it notes and just flip through and see your thoughts. I don't get into highlighting very much, but I do use tabs. You can use any kind of, these are little animal tabs, any kind of little arrows, or I get really cheap ones like Staples brand ones from Staples, and you can buy a larger pack than the post-it note ones. I'm not particular about what kind of tabs. And again, like I said, I don't do blue for emotional, purple for character, orange for plot. I'm not at the point where I'm color coding those. I think that annotating is so different for everybody. I have no artistic ability, or believe me, I would be drawing or handwriting calligraphy, or I'll like be scrolling through the sides. I'm going to switch camera angles and then I'll show you a little bit more close up about exactly how I annotate. This was the very first book that I ever annotated, and I was so nervous to do it because I really didn't know what I was doing. I wasn't sure that I understood exactly how I wanted to be annotating. This one was a little bit nerve-wracking for me until I figured out exactly how I liked to do things. And I can't even promise you that I did it that much because I was so nervous about it. Up the side here, I have a quote. I suppose if you're going to die, it should be for a noble cause. And this was somewhere on this page, and I just kind of wrote it up the side of the page there. I clearly tried to draw some waves. That was a poor life choice because I can't draw. There was nothing in the world but the hiss of the waves, the sigh of the sand beneath her feet, and the glare of the moon on the water. And then I did like a little moon and stars. Again, definitely not an artist, so that was, again, a poor life choice, but I had clear feelings about that particular passage. Over here, I have another one. This girl isn't like wildfire. She was wildfire, deadly and uncontrollable. But again, not a ton of it in this one. I see some coming up. She tasted bliss so complete that she tipped her head back to the sky and laughed. Where do men find it in themselves to do such monstrous things? We'll make them pay for it in the end. Yes, yes, we will. Just an example of the kind of quotes that I did, but no tabbing in this one. There's no like little stickies. This is a good middle ground between the first book and the next book that I'm going to show you. So this is one that I DNF'd, but I did do this as a buddy read. So the tabs that you see in here are for page goals. I said that before, not for anything to do with the book or the thoughts. So in here we have like page 1, she's referred to as Mrs. I had no idea she was married because, again, this whole book and series is about her romance with somebody else. I had no idea she was married when she time traveled. Spoiler alert. Anyway, so I immediately started making notes and underlining things. And you can see that that happens on pretty much every page. I make little notes and comments. Continues up here. And that happens nearly every page. That's like a big O face, like a what? For the most part, I just underline, maybe put a thought or two, but when something really big happens, I'll do that. Or I do little notes at the end of chapters, or where there's open spaces, I'll put more in-depth notes. And that's the way that I went forward with this book, and you'll see that kind of all the way through. If I do like random flips of different pages, you'll see a lot of underlining and a lot of notes, what I thought was important on those pages, what my thoughts were about them. So I've got like a little LOL down here, my little thoughts, little comments up here, and then more on this page. And that's the way that I went through with this book. This one was not my favorite color for annotating. It was a difficult one to kind of keep up with because the ink was too kind of close to the font color. Not my favorite. These are the Sarasa gel pens. They're the 0.0 or 0.7 fine gel tip. These do not bleed through, so I use these for like journals and stuff, and then these ones I would use for annotating because they stick out enough from the normal colors that ink usually is. And I like these. I usually use green or orange or this pink, so they're kind of all out with my books right now, but I do really love these. And I don't find that they bleed through pages, which I appreciate. Again, this is a gift from one of my subscribers, but these are just the kinds of tabs that I would use if I wanted to really mark in a book where I felt something was important. And then I have one other book to show you, and it is probably the one that I most vigorously annotated, and that is All the Ugly and Wonderful Things by Bryn Greenwood. This one I did both write in and tab. So like I said before, these are only because I ran out of the orange that I switched to the yellow. Otherwise, they probably would have all been orange. And this one I wrote in end tabs so that I knew what to come back to and where different things were within the book. Here you can see there's no tab on this page, but I do have a bunch of stuff underlined. Again, this is in that orange color that I said I really prefer because it stands out a lot from the page. And that to me helps as I flip through. I know exactly where I had feelings. And then we have on the next page a tab because these were things that I wanted to make sure I remembered. There is more underlined on this page, but usually if there's one here, I'm going to already open to this, so I don't tab this one because I'm already opening to that section in general. You can see there's some underlined stuff right here. If I flip back, this is actually empty right here. You don't see the underlining. So these gel pens really don't bleed through. If anywhere you were going to see it, you would see it here. Like you can see that there's kind of a little bit of a line there. You can also see the text through it. It's not bleeding through. And that's what I look for in the pens that I use for these. So here's another one where we've got some comments. I just put brackets. I do this a lot too. I'll just put brackets around different statements. This helps me from having to do a full underline, especially if there's a full paragraph that I want to remember. I'll just bracket it, and then that way I'm not like wasting ink to underline everything at once. And this kind of continues throughout the entirety of the book. So when there's tabs, it's when I've felt something very strongly that I wanted to remember for a review or for discussion. This one, again, I don't have a tab on this page, but I have a ton underlined. Again, that's a place where brackets would have been helpful. But because I have one here, I know I'm probably going to switch to the next page as well. So I don't worry about that too much. I do start to put my thoughts into the annotations. I've got some, clearly I have clearly feelings about some of this stuff that's happening. So these are underlined, heavily tabbed in this section, and then commented on as well. My thoughts again, open spaces like this when I have thoughts is where I will put the bulk of my narrative if I have really in-depth notes that I want to leave or just thoughts that don't fit into other margins. So that is how I annotate my books. Again, if you have any specific questions, let me know. I say that in the outro as well, I'm sure, and I'm probably saying it in the intro as well, but there's a ton of ways to do this. It really is what works for you. This is how I annotate. I hope you guys enjoyed this. This is legit my most requested thing. So I'm going to leave you here and go back to outro Julie, but thanks for watching. All right, guys, so that was the entire video. I didn't do too much by way of flip through just because it is kind of spoilery if you haven't read that book yet and you don't know the passages. My goal for 2018 is to annotate nearly every book that I read if I'm reading it in physical form, and I plan on keeping it. I love that it's going to look read and loved and like my own, and that the next person I lend it to can kind of see my thoughts along with their read of it. If you haven't taken the leap yet, go for it. That's how I annotate. If you have any other specific questions on how I annotate, let me know down below. I loved that you guys wanted to see this, but it really is a personal thing. It's different for everybody. What I find important in terms of plot, character development, emotional connection to the story, quotes that I really love and want to remember, that's how I feel reading it, but that's going to be very different from how you feel reading it. A lot of people said, well, how do you determine what you do and don't mark up? Again, it's very personal. It's whatever moves me, whether it's positive or negative. If you have any questions that I didn't touch on, because I feel like this is kind of a little bit scattered. In the meantime, if you liked this video, please do give it a big thumbs up, click subscribe, and I will see all of you in the next one. Bye, guys.